What up, everybody? Welcome to our Soulcast. This is Furiaki sitting alongside
John B. Spasmatic, y'all. How y'all feeling out there?
And we got our guest, Leah.
What's going on with you, Leah?
Hey, y'all.
All day.
Leah.
Think we got that part.
She's not nervous, guys.
None whatsoever. She's a natural. Alright, so check it out, Leah. We up and brought you in today, and basically we brought you in because you up and have an organization. And what is your organization called?
G.R.A.C.E, Girls Rising Above Child Exploitation.
Okay, so that's basically what our topics are going to be about as far as what we're doing today and everything that we ever got going on. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a Florida native, and I got married to
East
my
Coast girl.
husband. I am an East Coast girl.
East Coast represent from Chicago.
Redneck, but that's okay.
That's where the accent comes from. That
So,
makes a little bit more sense.
Destin, Florida, so it's the Redneck Riviera. But then I married my husband Jimmy, who's a Navy SEAL, so we ended up stationed in Hawaii for 5 years. And now we've been in California for about a year and a half. And that's
Only a year and a half.
Only a year and a half.
Oh, wow. So you already established, did you start G.R.A.C.E here in San Diego?
G.R.A.C.E is fresh. We started in about April of last year. So not even a year old yet. So
wow.
Yeah, we're pretty new.
So that's almost like Latin Soul, actually.
Right?
We started almost like 2 years ago. We're almost going on 2 years.
Yeah.
So and we started in April as well.
Okay, perfect.
We already got a little bit in common. Yay!
Yes. So Grace, if you don't know, will be at our event Back to Breaks. And the whole reason of this is just to give them a voice, to reach out to many different aspects, and us as hip hop and us as Latin Soul and MBS Entertainment, we just want to build you guys up and get that name out to different communities.
Because that's hip hop, y'all. Y'all already know. For all those that are actually authentically into hip hop was all about spreading the word. It was about the word of the people, putting out there whatever's going on in the streets, putting it in the music, putting it on the dance floor, putting it out there in the rallies. And if you don't know, now you know. You have no excuse. But we're gonna get back to Leah, and so. Tell us a little bit about your interests. What you got going on? You like golfing? You like swimming from time to time? What's good with you?
Oh my goodness, I can't even swim.
And you're from Florida.
I'm from Florida. I doggy paddle. I call it survival swimming.
Yes.
You know what? I've done it too. I've actually blown out my back from it because I've just try to float and everything.
Yes, I get you some little floaty wings.
It's kind of bad.
I know, it's funny because I used to surf, and it's like, how do you surf if you can't even swim? But you got the board, you know. And
you a brave soul, because I'm not hitting that water.
And then if I fall off my board, I got the survival swim to get back onto my board. And so I used to surf. And I like outdoors. I wasn't always an outdoorsy person, but moving to Hawaii for 5 years, you kind of to be an outdoor person, or else you'll be miserable and get island fever.
You like these tropical landscapes, huh?
Yeah,
Like you in Florida, Hawaii. Where else you go? Jamaica,
Australia.
Yeah. That's actually one of the spots I want to go.
Thailand.
That's actually my number 3.
Yeah.
No lie. That's been my number
amazing.
3 since I was like 17 years old.
It's
I've been trying to go to Thailand.
You should go. It's good food. Pad Thai all the way.
I heard. You know what? I'm gonna leave that because there's other things that I wanted to probably go over. Let's move on. So pretty much, what do you do for employment? What do you do outside of G.R.A.C.E? Do you do anything?
This is all I do.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, this is my heart and soul. I'm a professional volunteer, so I give my all to G.R.A.C.E. and I was in management before. I have my MBA.
Okay, so that helps out a lot.
It does. So.
Well, okay. Well, she has employment with G.R.A.C.E. That's actually at least good to know that you at least G.R.A.C.E. So if you don't mind, let's go ahead and start. We kind of wrapped up into pretty much everything almost a little bit faster than usual. So you know what? There's a lot to talk about.
There's a
lot to talk about. So maybe it isn't good to just sit on ceremony and let's just already go ahead and
just get to the
hop
meat
right
and potatoes,
into
man.
it. Yeah.
Just get into it.
So just pretty much what's your story? What has led you into starting Grace?
So I feel that this is my God-given purpose, like why I'm on this earth. I wasn't always religious. I'd actually gone down a pretty dark path. When I was 17, I had already moved out when I was 16. And so when I was 17, I was pretty much on my own, and I had to get a back surgery. And I had a really hard time getting off those pills from my back surgery. I didn't really have, so I was on some serious painkillers from having spinal fusion. I didn't really have the parental guidance I needed to learn how to get off those pills. And when you're 17 and working in the nightclub industry,
there's
in the restaurant industry, and you meet the wrong people. I had friends that were twice my age befriending me just because of the medications I was on and the unlimited supply that I had. And medication would make me super nauseous, and like, oh, if you just crush them up and snort them, you won't be so sick. So I started doing that, and then it started getting cut into other things. And before I knew it, I was addicted to all kinds of drugs and wrapped up in the wrong crowd. And I was working at a nightclub. I was a door girl, so I always was able to meet everybody who came through that door. And I guess one of the guys had his eye on me, and he was a VIP, so I was always taking care of him. I was used to like pleasing people, taking care of the VIPs. Always, like, you do whatever they want. You do whatever they want. Like, okay. And I made a lot of money by doing whatever they wanted. And so fast forward, I'm now 18, so I'm no longer a minor. And this guy has now lured and groomed me, and he is what I thought was my boyfriend. I loved this guy. He provided for me. I was in a really nice condo on the water, never had to worry about food or where I was going, took limos everywhere, had all these nice clothes. I was always going to all these meetings with him, these fancy business dinners and whatnot. And I thought I was living a luxurious life. I was over glamorized. And I just kind of put aside everything, anything that seemed not quite right, I would just kind of put it aside.
Well, you got some serious foresight, because if I'm up here being treated like that, I would have been like, I'm going to stay here for a few more years. I think this is a little comforting, but obviously it wasn't that situation, and thank goodness you actually had that foresight, but continue.
Well, I didn't, the thing, I was so, I don't know, enamored by it all, that I didn't see all the negative. And looking back, I can. But at that time, I was just like, this is I'm doing good. I'm 18. I'm living this lifestyle. This is great. I was still going to school. I went to Florida State. I was still, getting my education. I was all about business, and he saw that I had a business mind. And so I, fortunately, was not sold for sex as like a prostitute. I was very fortunate in that aspect. Girls around me, not so fortunate. And I have a lot of guilt from that, because I was the one helping to arrange phone calls and meetings and whatnot, not even knowing that that's what was happening. I thought, because I was an escort and I just went to dinners, I thought that was what other people were doing too. And I didn't catch on to the dark world of it all at the time. So fast forward, drugs, drinking, painkillers, muscle relaxers, everything, started having seizures. I consider them a gift from God, because the epilepsy made me useless to my boyfriend, and he discarded me.
So I'm guessing that means you couldn't go to clubs and so on and so forth, because of all the flashing lights and all the camera. Yeah.
So I became useless, and I was discarded, and then I was, found a boyfriend who would take care of me, because that's what I always look for, is somebody who's going to take care of me, because I couldn't take care of myself. And then I found out that he was cheating on me, and I was stuck up in Philly. I went to go stay with him in Philly. I was in Philly, and just found out that he was cheating on me. Then I was like, okay, now what? I'm stuck up here. Went to a Halloween party, and the Phillies were playing the Yankees in the World Series, so it was a big deal. And my ex-boyfriend walked in, and I just started chugging a bottle of Bacardio. And with everything that was already in my system, plus seizure medications you're not supposed to be drinking on, I ended up having 3 grand mal seizures and went unconscious. Oh, wow. And when I came to the next day, and I was alive, and I thought for sure I was dying, And, you know, when I'm having a seizure, I'm conscious in my own mind, but I'm unconscious of everybody else. And in that seizure, I used to have up to 12 a day. I was used to having them, but this one was different. And I could just tell that I wasn't going to wake up from this one. And I made my peace with that. I was like, you know what? I'm tired of being a burden to everybody. You know, that maybe it's better off that I'm just not here anymore. So I didn't intentionally try to kill myself, but I was not going to try to stop it. Exactly. And when I came to the next day, I was overwhelmed with emotion. And I was like, you know, maybe there is a God, and maybe I do have a purpose. And so I ended up going and getting this tattoo on my wrist in an apartment in Philly. And it says love.
Yeah, okay. It says love.
And
I'm glad you had to actually do that in order for you to show love. So
yes. And so there's an organization called To Write Love on Her Arms, and it's about kind of suicide awareness and trying to let people know that they are loved. And that kind of rang true to me in that moment. And I was like, man, I am loved. You know, God loves me, and I need to learn to love myself. And so I kind of dedicated like that moment, like I need to always remember to love myself because God loves me. So even if I feel unloved by everybody else, I know that God loves me. And in that moment, I was like, okay, I'm here for a reason, but what is that reason? And I didn't know. And but at that moment, I quit everything cold turkey. Didn't drink, didn't do any more drugs. I started living my life in a new light. And 2 years later, I met my husband, who brought me to Hawaii. And he was on a deployment, and one of the spouses brought me to church with her. And they had somebody from the Zoe Project speaking at the church about child trafficking. I believe it was in Haiti. And I got this overwhelming feeling over every ounce of my body. And I was like, that's my purpose. That's why God saved me. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to help these children out of child trafficking. So my husband comes back from deployment. I'm like, babe, I'm going to Haiti. I'm going to go rescue me some babies. And he's like, absolutely not. Like, you are not going anywhere. You're going to get trafficked. Like, you're not going over there. You just know. I'm like, well, why would God show me what I'm supposed to do and then not provide a way? And then in 2015, I had to get another back surgery. And I knew I did not want to get hooked on pills again. So I started looking up into alternative therapies. And in doing so, I started thinking, I'm like, okay, therapeutic resources, equine therapy, this, that. What happens to the kids after they've been rescued? And I started looking into, like, rescue and recovery and rehabilitation. There really wasn't any rehabilitative services for them.
There's usually a relapse, correct?
And exactly. The return to street rate was over 80%.
That's a damn shame.
And so I was like, maybe that's what I'm supposed to do. So in 2015, I was like, I knew that was what I wanted to do, but I didn't really know how. My husband was still active duty. I was recovering from a back surgery. Then things happened, and they seemed terrible at first because my husband had a traumatic brain injury, and we ended up getting medevac to California. And while he was in the hospital at Balboa, my old neighbor in Hawaii was actually stationed in San Diego, and she went to New Break Ocean Beach Church. And she's like, hey, come to church with me. And I'm like, oh, I'm tired. Oh, overslept. Sorry. Oh, I got to go visit my husband. Excuse after excuse after excuse. 8 weeks, every Sunday she would invite me, and every Sunday I'd come with an excuse. And she goes, hey, we're having a barbecue cook-off at church today. I'm like, food? Okay, I'm there. So
that'll work. That'll work.
And it's like, it's the way to my heart is food. So I went, and I was welcomed with open arms. And somebody was talking to me beforehand, and then he got on stage, and he was the pastor. I'm like, I was just talking to the pastor? Oh, my goodness, Because in the South, the Southern Baptist Church, like, I don't know, the pastor was, like, up on a pedestal, I never really got to
put your hand
see
down.
that.
Don't do that. You're doing some. Don't do that. You're saying something now.
No, so the pastor, was just kind of untouchable, unreachable, and people didn't really. I never felt really warm. It felt kind of cold, and I didn't really felt accepted or that I belonged. It felt more like a ritual. And so this was different, it felt like I was home. It felt like family. I felt like I was at a family reunion, Southern barbecue, and I was like, okay, I'm going to come back to this church, and see what this is all about. So I went back, and then there was a little life group called Discover Your Pathways that the pastor was actually teaching. And one of the icebreakers was, if you could do anything to change this world, what would it be? And I was like, I would, start some rehabilitation centers for victims of child trafficking. And then throughout that, there was a study on grace. And I learned what grace was. It was like a free gift from God that you can be completely washed clean of your past and be renewed in Christ. And when I finally understood that concept and could wash away my past of everything I had been through and actually live the life that I was meant to live and not be bound by my sin and not be bound by my regret and everything I had done, I was able to finally break those chains and move forward and actually start, the grace. And so I went back to my hotel room, and I was staying at the Navy Gateway. There's a little Navy Gateway notepad, and I wrote down grace in all capital letters. I was like, man, that would be a great name for a program, because if these girls could have that realization that I just had and not have to go through years and years and years of that guilt and regret and be able to start renewed right then and there, just completely wash clean and start fresh, that's a concept that I could really get behind and really launch forward. And so what could GRACE stand for? I guess came out, Girls Rising Above Child Exploitation. What does exploitation mean? So I started Googling, and I was like, it fits. So
wait, let's hold on for a second. Pause. Okay.
Exploitation.
So I'm not making fun of you here, because we all go through the process. It's hard to come up with names, especially acronyms. You didn't even know what exploitation meant. You
No.
it just rolled out of you.
yes.
And you're just like, exploitation. Exploitation. Exploitation.
Exactly, right?
Old.
And it worked.
I guess if it's if it's natural, that's the best things that ever come out of life, is the things that are actually just natural.
Yeah.
So, not knocking you, I just think it's kind of funny, maybe because I did the same shit.
See, one and the same.
But you see, the funny thing is that me and her were in that same group, in the same life group, and she was talking about what you had to do, if you could change something. Mine was I wanted to change the world through hip hop or bring up youth. And look where we are now. We got her on the podcast.
Yes.
That's dope.
We're making
I know.
That's dope.
It's
Yo,
amazing.
That's dope,
All the way from Florida, y'all. All the way from Florida and Hawaii. And what was the other place? Philly?
Yeah, I was in
And
Philly
she's
for a short period. Yeah.
Well, good memories, Florida and Hawaii.
Yes.
And now
San Diego.
hopefully San Diego.
Yeah.
So basically, you already kind of broke down exactly what you've been going through as far as your beginning, your middle, and I'm not gonna say you're in, because you haven't ended yet. You're not retired. It's still ongoing. Let's get into a little bit of the meat potatoes now.
Yeah.
So as of recently, and please forgive me if you find this inappropriate or don't find it inappropriate, but I watched Crash. I already know. I've already seen the movie since I was a kid. Now, this is my question to you. You rehabilitate these girls. Is it just first of all, is it just girls?
Just girls.
It's just girls. Okay, cool. Now, number two, when I was watching Crash, you remember the scene? Have you ever seen Crash?
I have not.
You have not seen Crash.
I have not.
So I'm going to sound like a if I were bring up the rest of this moment. But you know what? You've seen Crash.
You could go for it.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna put. I could paint you a picture.
Sure.
So in the movie Crash, there's a Asian guy that's selling people into pretty much slavery. That's human trafficking. I don't know if it's sex trafficking. I just know it's human trafficking. And Ludacris, his character, you know who Ludacris is,
yes,
right?
I
His
do.
character on the movie, he frees all the cats and everything like that. Now, throughout the movie, you have no idea that this guy is actually selling humans. He doesn't know that there's any human trafficking going on. Nobody in the audience knows about it until towards the end of the movie. How am I supposed to know who's being trafficked?
Yeah, I mean,
In the real world,
yeah.
how am I supposed to know when somebody's being trafficked? Because something that undercover and something that covert is very difficult to identify.
it is. It is hard. It is hard to know. There are some signs, but for middle schoolers and high schoolers, there are some kids that are doing great in school, part of extracurricular activities. They start getting trafficked outside of school, and they come in, they have bruises. Some of them might have a tattoo on their neck or another part of their body because they've been branded. They start looking more disheveled, maybe start wearing more makeup, start dressing more adult, scantily.
That seems like regular child behavior, though.
And
it's kind of difficult to actually pinpoint what that is. I got a tattoo when I was 16.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you want to say that this is like gang related. I mean, like you can throw up some Japanese gang signs, but it says love on them, so it doesn't really count.
See, love and love. Look at that.
Yeah. Love. We love and respect and friendship and stuff like that. But never. But still, is there any way that you can actually identify specific brandings? Like, just like prison tattoos, you ever have the affiliation of every gang.
Yeah.
Is there any specific, like, sex trafficking affiliation, or are they all always almost, like, unanimous or, like, anonymous?
Well, I mean, they're all different. Some people are actually trafficked, like, and branded with a barcode. They actually have a number. So that
like an actual barcode.
Mm-hmm. And then there's people that put up their, like, family crest. Like, when my foster sister was trafficked, she has the family crest of the guy that was her pimp. And
his family crest?
Yeah, like, where he, like, made a family crest. Like, he made up his own family crest.
So he basically made his own branding.
Exactly, to brand his girls.
Okay.
And you know what? Like, the tattoo shop in my hometown, they've made a joke about it, not really realizing that was what was going on. And they have his little brand printed out throughout the tattoo shop, like in the toilet roll paper or something like that. And when you're like going through your toilet paper and you get the thing out, they're like, "Oh, you got served," and it's become a joke instead of saying like, "Hey, this isn't right," because people just don't even understand what it is. I didn't understand human trafficking or child trafficking and sex trafficking up until just a couple of years ago. And I didn't even know what had happened to me back in 2009 until 2015 when I started doing research and realizing, oh my gosh, that's what that was. That's what had happened. My boyfriend had gotten deported for human trafficking, and my mom was like, "Oh, I'm so glad that wasn't you," And I'm like, "Yeah, me too." And then it's like, oh my goodness, I was a part of that, but I was so blinded to it because I didn't understand what it was. And so that's another thing. Like, a lot of the girls that we recover don't even know that they've been trafficked. They don't see themselves as victims because they don't understand it. They don't even get what has happened to them.
Do you what exactly would lead somebody into actual, like, sex trafficking, for instance? What would be, say, if you can give off 3 elements of what would be noted as somebody that's probably headed for a sex trafficking ring, or actually being a recruit, being initiated into a sex trafficking ring, what were those 3 things?
As far as the girls?
As far as the girls.
So, victims, like, runaways are really easy targets.
Runaways.
And in California, we have a lot of homeless youth shelters, and the traffickers literally wait outside the homeless youth shelters.
Ain't that a bitch? These cats are literally they're on deck. These cats ain't playing around. No. Wow.
They're smart. And traffickers, like, and pimps, they are smart. They're masterminds.
It's kind of good that you up there said that they smart, because now you up there gave off their location. So Black Soul's going to be like, we going to be waiting outside real quick. We're going to start escorting little kids outside the shelters, and just have we'll do it non-violent too. We'll just whoop ass. We won't have no guns. We won't have no knives. I mean, unless you want us to have guns. A little bit different. But nevertheless, that's 2.
Yeah. So
homeless shelters for runaways. Runaways.
Yep.
Homeless shelters, are those separate or are those together?
That's kind of together.
Together?
Yeah.
Okay, so then what's the second one?
Girls that have had prior sexual trauma as a child, a younger child, because they're desensitized, and when they're 3 and 4 and they're being sexually traumatized, they're being told, this is okay, this is cool, this is what adults do, you're a grown up now, this is what love is. And so they've already had that going through their head. So when it happens again at 12, 13, 14 years old, they're like, oh, this is okay. I've already been through this. This is okay. This is normal. This is what adults do. I'm an adult.
I don't want to get too into details, but unfortunately I'm going to have to. What are some of those things that are considered to be sexual trauma?
Touching. If you're uncle or a family friend or even your older brother has, felt you up as a child, that's already breaking those barriers.
And as far as touching, please be a little bit more specific.
Touching a young girl's breast, touching their vagina, inserting their fingers. So that's all touching. And then there's also full-on rape, where a older individual takes advantage of a young individual and has sex with them against their will. And even if a young person seems consenting, they can't consent at that age. So it's not. And so it's always rape. If you're having sex with a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 12-year-old, it's rape. I mean, there's no gray area.
What about teenagers?
4-year-old can't consent. Some teenagers, teenage
Under
and
the
teenage.
age of 18.
Yeah, teenage and teenage. Sometimes that's consenting. An adult with a teenager is non-consensual.
And what is an adult considered by U.S. law? I'll say.
Well, I believe it's over 18.
It's 18 or over.
Yeah.
18
And what is and for a non-adult will be considered what?
Every state is
younger.
different. So some are 16, some are 17.
But none of them are 18.
No.
So that means that you are too young. By the age of 18, you are now considered to be a consenting adult. Before the age of 18, you are not considered a consenting adult. So that means at any given moment, if you're an 18-year-old male and you are having sexual intercourse with a 13-year-old girl, regardless of her consenting, that is considered to be rape.
Right. Correct. So,
Got it.
So that's 2 things. And 3 is the fact that anybody can be trafficked. You have the kids that have come from broken homes that are trying to earn a meal. And so, yeah, that might be an easier lure. But then you have the kids that came from a mom who was a lawyer or a dad who was a deacon, and they just signed up for a false modeling agency. So, it could really be anybody. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, Asian, Mexican. They don't care what your race is. They just care that you have a vagina that can be bought and sold over and over and over again.
Now, how does this kind of stuff fly underneath the radar? Like, so easily, from what it seems like, because obviously this stuff isn't in mainstream media. And when we're talking about mainstream media right now, Donald Trump is up there taking all the cake and everything that could possibly be an issue in the world. So, of course, we're not going to be able to see whatever you're talking about. They don't give a damn about Latin Soul or Soulcast, whatever we got to talk about. Donald Trump saying crazy like all Haitians got AIDS. You know what I mean? You don't actually have. We don't have substance enough. It's not enough substance. Yeah. And even if it did have enough substance, it's not going to be in mainstream media. So basically, what I'm saying is that it's undercover.
Yeah.
So how exactly do we?
It's an underground industry. It's the fastest growing underground industry. It used to be drugs, arms, then humans, and now it's drugs, humans, and arms. And they suspect that humans is going to surpass drugs here soon, because drugs can be bought or sold once or twice. Humans can be bought and sold over and over and over again. After they have a girl in their grasp, and they, it's one thing getting the girl lured, there's another thing keeping her. And so that's the problem, is they start injecting them with heroin, and then the girl becomes addicted to heroin, and then they will do whatever they have to get that drug, because now they're addicted to it. And they'll do whatever they have to please their boyfriend, because they want to earn that love, because they don't understand that love doesn't have to be earned. It's a gift that's given, and so they're always trying to earn that love. And so they're willing to perform however they have to. 1, for the drugs, 2, for the love, and 3, because they're threatened. Like, we'll kill you, we'll kill your family. So they're going to continue that. And so kids can be trafficked and sold, 20 times a day. They just lay there on their backs, and there's a line of men just waiting.
With that, we're going to go ahead and start getting into a break. We're going to cut it off there, bring it back in our second segment. We're going to pick this up and start getting into some more meat and potatoes. We'll be right back.